All right, NAL Playdate number 7 recap, of course, stage number 1, 2022 season. The day of no upsets, and that's a little bit weird to say considering Beast Coast and XSET both got victories, but I guess we'll address that when we get there. Okay, first game of the day, Astralis versus Mirage, 7-2 victory, pretty well expected. Mirage playing with their coach, and Astralis just continuing ahead at full steam, looking really, really good. They played on Oregon, and round breakdown here. We see Astralis take the first 6 rounds in a row, a flawless attacking half, which is quite strange to say. If you go back not too far on Oregon, you'd be quite surprised to see something like this happen. We do switch sides, and then Mirage get 2 of their own. Mirage have seemed to be much better at attacking than defending, and maybe that's just fitting into the new attacker meta, or it just comes down to their lineup, whatever it is. But then finally, in round number 9, Astralis closes it out for a very dominant 7-2 scoreline. Community prediction, I mean, yeah, what do you expect? 96% to 4%, and yeah, it's about what you'd expect from this particular matchup at this point in the stage. Yeah, looking at the stats, everyone pretty well in the red over here. You know, it is nice to see that Guerra didn't do like significantly worse than his team. It was fun to watch him play Blitz a few rounds. And these guys are just kind of rolling with the punches, playing to have fun, because that's about all you can do at this point, especially playing with your coach, and it's not like they could have qualified for the major even if they still had Razor in or anything. And then on the flip side, on Astralis, iconic shuttle DP for us, all of them heavily in the green, and then J90, pretty modest rating. It hasn't been the flashiest season for J90. He really popped off, if I remember right, back in stage number 3 last year, and now it's been the time for everyone else on his team to shine. I think after today, maybe Shuttle has the highest rating on his team, maybe even before today. And then we've also seen really incredible performances this stage thus far from Iconic and from DP and from Forest. So maybe J90 will pop off in the final 2 playdays. We'll have to see. Let's move on to the next game. TSM versus Beast Coast. They go head-to-head on Skyscraper. I think this is only, what, the second Skyscraper game that we've seen this stage thus far, from the NAL at least. And right, 7-2, so dominant scoreline by Beast Coast, and I did say there were no upsets. I mean, coming into the stage, this would definitely be an upset. Beast Coast was an unknown quantity, and before they were this exact incarnation, they were really bad. And TSM, reigning world champions, all this stuff. But, of course, Beast Coast just had a lot more points on the board, have been playing much better than TSM. Whatever TSM's issue is, largely it looks like just lack of motivation coming off of that 6th invitational win. And so perhaps we'll see them bounce back for stage number 2. And yeah, I would expect either stage number 2 or stage number 3. I'm sure these guys want to go to one of the majors. And if they don't start performing, it's going to be very difficult for them to go to SI. And I suppose they can just do the same thing as last year, where they just go through the qualifiers. But I'm sure they don't want to have to do that. So probably we'll see TSM be better. It's not that much harder to be somewhat better than they were this stage. Really, Bolo just sort of needs to wake up. Okay, so looking at the round breakdown here. Couple of rounds for Beast Coast, 1 for TSM, and then 3 more for Beast Coast. Skyscraper seems to be panning out to be one of the most defensive-sided maps. It might be statistically the most defender-sided thus far, but it also only has, I guess, you know, the 2 plays or whatever. Okay, then switching sides, Beast Coast get yet another round, and that already puts them up onto 6 points. 1 more and they win the game. TSM gets 1, and then Beast Coast closes it out. So another 7-2 scoreline. And this one, I mean, the prediction, I don't think properly indicates what the expectations were going into this game. I think TSM just has a lot more fans than Beast Coast. And, you know, maybe people honestly did think this is where TSM was going to bounce back. But, yeah, I still would have thought Beast Coast to be the favorites based on what had happened thus far. Okay, looking at the stats, real pop-off game from Drip here. He had 1 round where he got like a 4K 1v2, 1v3, something like that. He went big 1 round. And I think there might have even been 1 more clutch by Beast Coast in here, but I don't really want to scrutinize it that heavily. Okay, so pretty modest stats coming out from Anthony and Slash, but pop-off game from, once again, Drip, as well as Sweater and Surf. So Sweater and Surf continue to be pretty powerful fraggers, and every other player, I think we've seen them put up pretty good scorelines at any given moment, that being Slash and Anthony and Drip. And then over here, everyone getting kind of dominated except for Merc. I guess the high cost is what's really keeping him afloat here. Everyone else went negative, and I suppose Merc also did go negative, but just by 1, even on the entry. So yeah, I mean, these are probably about the stats you'd expect from a 7-2 scoreline, but it's just so strange to see TSM repeatedly putting up these stats, especially Bolo. I think he's still not had a game this stage thus far where he's gone positive. I think he had like 1 game where he went negative, but I also think he still has the highest headshot rate in the league. So, you know, take that for what it's worth. All right, on to the next game. Game number 3, Dark Zero versus Xset, and yeah, another weird one to say that it was not an upset for Xset to win. Much closer than the previous 2 games, so both of those were 7-2s. This was a 7-5. I thought this one was about even. I think, right, weren't they both on the same number of points? They both had 12 points coming into this, but Xset had been more hot more recently. They were on a 4-game win streak. This makes 5, and Dark Zero, I suppose, again, had the same number of points, but they just didn't come all consecutively like they did for Xset. And some of that might have been just based on the teams that Xset had been playing, but I mean, now beating Dark Zero, they're further proving themselves to be quite an excellent squad, or at least thriving in this particular meta. You know, maybe we'll see a fall off in the future, but for now, right, you know, just very impressive, the streak that they're on. We go to Clubhouse. I think this is this the first Clubhouse we've seen this stage? One of, if not just the very first. Okay, so looking at the round breakdown, Dark Zero gets a round, 2 for Xset, 1 for Dark Zero, 2 more for Xset, so 4-2 attacking half, and I mean, that's pretty well standard at this point. You know, most maps you probably would anticipate like a 3-3 or a 4-2 for one of the sides. A 5-1's pretty skewed, but it also just depends on the map. Clubhouse in the past was sort of defender-sided, and it slowly was becoming more attacker-sided, and then even more so now with repick. And then we switch sides, so then we see a streak by Dark Zero. They actually take the lead here. They're up 5-4, but then a streak back from Xset 3 in a row to win the game 7-5. No, they do secure all 3 points against Dark Zero, and as you can see from the community prediction, the community was pretty well expecting Xset to win. Is this the exact same numbers as the TSM game? Was it 63 to, I guess TSM was on the left, right? But 63 to 37 might have been the exact same. Okay, another really good game from Kino. He's had several, even though he's been playing on the most supportive role. I guess he's not like hard support like other teams have a hard support, but I mean, that's basically what he's doing, right? He's playing Ace, which is perhaps the fraggiest of all of the hard breachers, maybe debatably Maverick, but yeah, up to interpretation, and then playing the smoke. And Yaga continues to be incredible, just putting up fantastic stats. He seems to really thrive on this roster. I don't think he ever really hit his stride on Oxygen. I don't think he was ever terrible. That might not be true. I think at one point he was really poor statistically, but I think he also had a lot of good moments, just not any incredible highs like he's had this stage. I mean, his average rating I think is around 1.3, and well, 1.4 for this game, 12-5, flawless on the entry. Yeah, he's been crazy on this XS squad, and I think Kino and Yaga, the two standouts. I think Diaz has done quite well as well, and maybe Gomez and Spirits will need just a little bit more time to get up to snuff, but obviously they are integral parts of this Xset machine. So looking at Dark Zero, Canadian on top, I would say that we don't see a whole lot of this, but I think we've seen this like an okay number of times this stage. Maybe not on the very top, but he's been putting up pretty good stats this stage compared to what he had been putting up previously, and then you know, nobody else doing that well. This really makes it look like it wasn't such a close game, a 7-5. This kind of looks like it'd be a 7-4, 7-3, maybe even a 7-2. And I guess this is just made possible by the fact that, I mean, I guess Spirits does have a pretty low rating, but also probably Xset was winning their rounds more dominantly, or Dark Zero was winning their rounds less dominantly. One of those two. Okay, so that does it for this game. Let's go to the next one. Sonics versus Oxygen, game number 4. This is one of the more considered rivalries in the league. I think these guys usually have pretty good games. If I remember right, back in stage 2 of last year, it was kind of a stomp by Sonics onto Oxygen. It was like 7-3. It was a really bad stage for Oxygen, but I think the other 2 games were pretty close affairs, if I remember correctly. And so we do see a pretty close affair here too. No overtime, but max regulation, playing on some border. Sonics have been really bad this stage, and Oxygen have been really good, so I think a lot of people expected this to be not so close. Oxygen has fallen off a little bit, and that might just be because of the order of their schedule, but Sonics have definitely been improving over the course of the stage, playing more confidently, I mean, whatever it is, recovering from whatever was causing their slump, it would seem. Not quite enough to beat Oxygen, but if it had just gone a little bit differently, indeed, they could have taken it to overtime, or maybe even just beat them in regulation. So going to the round breakdown, we have Sonics taking the lead, 2 quick rounds, so it looked like maybe this is going to be a Sonics game, but we are attacking on border. I think border might actually be defensive-sided statistically at the moment, but I still feel like over time it's going to even out as people figure out border better, and especially with attacker repick, it should go back to being attacker-sided, I would think. And then we do see 4 in a row from Oxygen, so right, that lead just evaporates, and now it looks like Oxygen are in the driver's seat, but because border will continue to trend to the defenders for now. It should be a little bit close, and we do know it's going to be close, of course. Oxygen gets this round off the back of a 1v1 clutch, and I mean, obviously they needed this round. They only win 7-5. If they'd lost this round, it would have ended up going to overtime, unless, you know, well, some butterfly effect shenanigans. Sonics get 3 in a row, so they're sort of making the comeback. And at this point, I guess it puts it to 5-5. It's anybody's game, but then Oxygen gets the final 2 rounds to close it out, get the full 3 points. And 13% for Sonics, I think, right, didn't they put up a decent showing in the previous day? Am I remembering that right? But, and I guess maybe even because Oxygen faltered a little bit, they lost their flawless streak. And this is probably about what I'd expect. Maybe even more. I feel like Sonics probably had a little bit more upset potential exhibited by their play in this game, where they nearly took it to overtime. But, okay, looking at the stats, another solid stat line by Grixer. He's had a couple this stage thus far, even though his team has been not winning so much. And then Kanzan good, Rexen good, and then, you know, Yeti and Super, the support players, not doing as well, but still bringing their team close to taking the victory against the powerful Oxygen squad. And the real reason why Oxygen did win this is, of course, this scoreline right here. Vertical went insane, plus 10. He's been nuts all stage, obviously the best player in the league. He has played the best of anyone in the league, at least you'd say. Flawless on entry, 83% cost. Dream putting up good numbers as well. Foxay kind of in the middle, and then Laxing, and especially Newer's really struggling. Newer's kind of has gone on to the struggle bus, but luckily he has Big Daddy Vertical to carry him across the line. I'm sure Newer's will recover. It's probably the sort of thing where you've never played in T1 before, and then you start struggling, so it's really hard to get out of it, because I think you sort of get in your head like, oh, maybe I'm not built for this. But Newer's has said many times that he is indeed built differently, and perhaps built just for this. So I'm sure we'll see a bounce back from Newer's, if not in this stage, then you know, at the major, which they are likely to attend at this point. And all right, on to the next game. Space Station Gaming versus Parabellum Esports. Final game of the day ends up 7-4 in favor of Space Station. Sort of an expected result. You know, maybe this could have been less close, could have even been closer, but I do think Space Station was pretty much the heavy favorite coming into it, I'd say, as indicated by the poll. I think Parabellum winning would have been a little bit of a shock. All right, so Space Station take the first round, Parabellum, Space Station, Parabellum, Space Station, Space Station. So 4-2 lead after their defensive half. Cafe, I don't even know that it's necessarily attacker or defender sided. I've seen it go both ways several times. It's one of the more swingy maps for whatever reason. I guess maybe it's just how the teams match up on the map. But yeah, I think it's not that big of a red flag if either team gets a 4-2 half after either half. I think it could potentially be made up by the other team in the other half, but that's just not what ends up happening here. Parabellum, Space Station, Parabellum, and they need to continue winning. They need to get the next 2 to take it to overtime, but no, Space Station just shuts it down in round number 11. And then another good game by Creators. He's been sort of up and down, but I think he's been fairly solid overall. Eska, Penguin doing all right, and then Kool-Aid and Wimpy really struggling statistically in this game. Wimpy's kind of fallen off. He was really, really good early on in the stage, and now not so good. So we'll see, I guess, how his stats and everything averages out by the end of the stage. And then Kool-Aid, I mean, perhaps it's just not benefiting the team very much, the fact that him and Penguin sort of switch roles back and forth. They're both sort of playing support here, and that they're playing, I guess, Flank Watch and the Hard Breach here, but sometimes either of them will be on Zofia, they'll be playing Entry, so they're kind of switching around. Maybe it would be more favorable to just have more set roles on more maps, but as it is now, they just sort of take it map by map, and maybe it's not benefiting them as much as set roles could. Rampy really popping off here. I think this is his second real pop-off game of the stage, and then Skies continues to be good. I mean, what can you say? He just really flourishes on this more flex kind of role when he has a little bit more control over what he can be doing in any given moment. He seems to really thrive doing that sort of thing. And then once again, just a really mediocre rating by Fultz, and then Vasco here, and then a kind of struggling sort of game from Hot and Cold. So I think at this point, it's pretty well answered the question of will Hot and Cold continue his absolute regional dominance, and it seems to be no. Maybe he'll wake up after this stage. I want to say stage 1 was his worst stage last year, but and that was when he was on Mirage, but it was still an incredible stage. He was still like they're the second highest rated player behind only Grixer. So I guess maybe it's more of a team effort, or maybe they need a slight role tweaking, or maybe they just need a little bit more time to fit into their slightly new roles, because I think Hot and Cold's still largely playing the same role as he was before. I think the main role switch was between Bosco and Skies, but that probably also resulted in some sort of a shift in what everyone else is doing, if not on the macro scale than on the micro scale. And okay, so I guess that's gonna do it for the games. We're not gonna look at the standings or the stats or anything. I'll look at that in the next one. It'll be sort of for the end of the week because there's of course a play day right after this. And if I'm being honest, of course, I recorded this after the other one, so the stats are updated and the standings are already updated as well beyond that point. So I have the standings I could look at in like a document, but no, we're just gonna skip it for this time. And yeah, I guess that'll do it. I'll catch you guys in the next one.